Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar discussion topic video. This one is going to be my thoughts on the recent kind of rumors slash leaks that have come out about the upcoming Aang movie from Avatar Studios, Legend of Aang: The Last Airbender. So where this comes from is that the Spanish YouTube channel Appa Comics put up a video saying that he basically got a bunch of images from someone who worked at Paramount, kind of revealing information and visuals to him about the movie, and he goes over a couple of points from them in this video. So let's go over this stuff. I will say, like, most of it is sort of just kind of like a visual breakdown, specifically actually focused to a certain degree on the 2023 CinemaCon image in terms of comparing and contrasting. There's only real, I would say, like maybe 2 points of like, we need to really talk about this type thing that people seem to maybe be freaking out about a little bit, but we'll get into it. So straight away, spoilers, of course. If you don't want to be spoiled even through kind of leaks or rumors, definitely kind of move away from the video here. I don't think anything I have on screen right now is particularly spoilery, because the main twist isn't on screen here. But anyway, that out of the way, let's go through this. So at the start, he quickly goes over, like, basically rapid fire. These are the core points I'm going to go over in the video. Republic City is prominent as a setting. We already know this from Mike and Brian. They mentioned this in their San Diego Comic-Con interview with IGN. So that's fine. We know that Republic City, of course, is going to be here. 2, the animation is delicious, really good. That echoes, again, what Mike and Brian have kind of been talking about every time they kind of do maybe mention the movie, is just that this movie, it seems like, is going to have particularly amazing, incredible animation that I think is probably going to blow us all away when we actually see it. 3, one of the key locations in the movie that kind of is, I suppose, directly related to the plot is going to be this secret temple in the mountains somewhere. I don't think we know the specific location within the world to it, but this is the idea. This is effectively, if you're bringing all the information we know about this movie together, this is probably the Lost Realm. This is the Hidden Kingdom, referencing the 2 kind of previous titles. Lost Realm was directly confirmed by copyright stuff, and then one of the other rumors was Hidden Kingdom. But again, Lost Realm, Hidden Kingdom, they basically are the same thing. And I think this is directly what we're talking about with this secret temple. So this actually makes a lot of sense when you link it in with the kind of confirmed information to a certain degree. 4, it seems like the plot is going to revolve around this kind of mysterious and powerful staff that, the plot is going to be based around. Now, maybe I need to rewatch the video again, but I don't think it's ever particularly detailed what exact way the staff kind of works, what its powers necessarily are, just that it seems to be something that maybe kicks the plot into motion, or is something that the kind of heroes and villains are both going to be looking for. I'm not super clear on where exactly the staff is involved, but to the point where, like, I don't think there's really a controversy around the staff, at least based on what we know right now. But anyway, 5, we will meet the wording in the video is just new avatar, and that's been posted around the place, and people are kind of like freaking out about that for some reason. But clearly the implication from this is it's a new past avatar. We're not talking about the future or anything like that. We're talking about a new past avatar. We've got so many of them that we don't have a clue about. And it seems like the idea is that this staff is a kind of relic of one of these past avatars, and we'll get into that information as we go on. 6, just quickly added in here that there is no Azula in the movie, but then also that our villain that we have here is similar apparently to Silas from League of Legends. I'm not particularly familiar with League of Legends, but you can see this is the image used in the video here. Silas just getting across the idea that, hey, this character is voiced by Dave Bautista. If you saw him in his wrestling days, they're kind of almost going for the idea that he almost, I guess, looks like that. He's going to be very muscular and an imposing threat. As for the no Azula thing, I think at this point most people have probably come to the conclusion that this is the case. Given that I think everything we've heard about this, even the official description we have from the copyright information, which is just that, they'll face a villain the likes of which they've never seen before. That's clearly not Azula. That if they are going to do Azula in one of these movies, they'll probably do it in one that is a bit more Zuko focused. So if we are getting that kind of Zuko movie that's been kind of rumored, but there hasn't been much information about at all. We still don't know, of course, with the 3 movies that they have planned, if they're going to make it a trilogy or if it's just kind of one-off movies in different eras. I'm leaning probably towards, it being an ATLA trilogy at this point, or at least they'll do another movie that might kind of bring this up. So maybe one of those situations where if Azula is going to be in this first movie, maybe she's the after credits scene. That would be kind of the ultimate way to do that, but we'll move on. This is where we get into the kind of visual comparison, and basically just the video highlights that the visuals have improved in their mind quite a lot from the CinemaCon 2023 image, which again is this one. I never really saw the kind of controversy or slight controversy that came up when this happened. Just, again, the usual thing where people pick apart the images and that. Like, in my mind, the same thing happened with the Seven Havens image, where people were like, this doesn't look like Avatar, not realizing that, like, hey, it's been, like, 10 years since the last time we saw Avatar animation. Things have evolved and changed a little bit between then and now. Also, these are still images, they are not animation, so there's that as well. So I think some of the basis of maybe where this is coming from is not, like, something I necessarily kind of feel too strongly about. But anyway, the core point here is just that the character designs are very similar to that image. There's basically just small adjustments. If you watch the video, they kind of go through them a little bit kind of more to explain bits and pieces. But the core of it seems to be that the general core of that the design for each character is in essence the same. Their outfits have slightly been adjusted, but the image that we had before is representative of their character designs, which also makes sense because the kind of leaks we got for the Sonic Racing Cross Worlds DLC featuring Aang, the Avatar one's coming later on, that also showed us basically the same adult Aang design. So I think that makes sense that they at some point did lock in roughly what the designs were going to be like. The description we got for what these images are, like how he knows what the characters look like, is that the character images are like the characters on white backgrounds, and there is a text description beside them. But the clarification here is that the text on, it seems like most or maybe some of the characters is cut off, because I think later on he references that he has the text description for the villain, but is not revealing that for spoiler reasons. And is just putting out a teaser about the villain in this video. But maybe for some of the Team Avatar members, the description isn't something he has. Goes over the character ages, saying Sokka's 26, Katara's 24, Zuko's 26, Toph's 22, Aang is 122. The only thing here is that Sokka should be off compared to... Sokka shouldn't be the same age as Zuko unless we're setting it like in a specific month where Zuko hasn't had his birthday yet, because Zuko should be older than Sokka. And of course, he shouldn't be disconnected from Katara that much. So Sokka, realistically, if this is the ages, should be probably 25. Though, again, if their birthdays are positioned in the right position, maybe this works out, but it should be something like that. Either way, the point compared to previously what we had is that it seems like the characters are basically 2 years younger than I think we maybe heard originally in the movie. With the idea being probably on the Aang Toph side of things, that the youngest members of the group, they're 22 instead of being like 24. So that's kind of interesting. So compared to where we are in like the comics right now, it means that we're maybe more like 6-7 years after the events of like Imbalance, basically, rather than getting closer to 10 years. But again, we'll have to wait and see what the full situation is. He mentions that he does have a sketch image, it seems like, of the staff. All they basically confirm is just that the staff is not the one that Aang is holding in his Republic City statue. That being the kind of pretty standard staff that has basically the Airbender symbol on the top. It's not that. Mentions a location in Republic City, kind of highlighting that like it seems like the proto Republic City we're going to see here maybe has sections that come across a little bit more individualistic for the different nations, but that there is this quote unquote Unity Tower that is like a watchtower or base for Team Avatar. Maybe, I'm not sure how confident that exact detail necessarily is, but that seems kind of cool because again, it's going to be kind of Republic City, the core of like what 60 something years before Korra's era. So, you know, we're going to see some different buildings, that sort of thing. The villain is described quite in a hyped way as being quite cool. The name is given in the video as a riddle, which is a picture of Tagaka multiplied by 2/3 plus H. And again, when you figure that out, it's like, okay, the first 2/3 of Tagaka is Taga, and then you add a H onto the end, and it's Taga. Again, we don't know the pronunciation. I'm assuming that's what it was meant to be. The only other way to do this would be, is it the last 2/3 of Tagaka, which would be Gaka and H Gaka. But I think Taga maybe fits a little bit better as that. So that's interesting. That, I think, is actually a relatively cool name. This is where the kind of twist, shock, reveal comes out. This character has tattoos. I think the video maybe could have implied it a little bit better, but I think the reveal that the character is an airbender probably makes it clear that, like, implied airbending master tattoos. Like, that the idea is that this character has arrow tattoos in some way. They might be slightly different than what we're used to. The avatarist in his video covering these leaks kind of highlights that he has information that he's not yet been able to confirm, so he hasn't made it like super public, but he mentioned it here, that information he had suggests that the villain does look similar to this, but that the tattoos were specifically told to him to be fake. So that feels like, probably, like, to a certain degree, like, is that the reveal in the movie? That, like, the initial idea of this villain is shock horror. Aang is not the last airbender. One of the villains he's going up against is an airbender. How is he going to deal with this? That is a huge thing for him and his arc, and, you know, being that character out of time, not having any of his people, but then here apparently is one of them, potentially. And it's just this kind of crazy situation, and they want you to go down that kind of shocked road until at the end it's revealed that it's actually a fake type situation, similar to Amon. That's at least my thoughts on kind of what they're doing here. There's obviously a few different pieces that we have to go through, but anyway, he specifically doesn't want to go into spoilers about the full, I suppose, details he has on the villain. So it suggests that whatever text description he has for the villain does have some significant information about, like, what the situation actually is, but that apparently this information has the potential to expand the lore of Avatar. So the way in which this character is an airbender, or like where they're from, who they are, is something notable in some way, which is kind of interesting. The new Avatar is the owner of the staff. Like I said before, it's kind of like a relic of this avatar. He again gives this kind of puzzle for the avatar's name, which is Sokka times a half plus Naga times a half plus M, which gives you Sonam, which I think is what most people are going with. Or technically it could be Soknam, because Sokka's name is 5, half of it's like 2.5. It could be, you know, you take the first 2 or first 3 from Sokka. But it seems like people are going for Sonam as the idea here. And that, I think, makes sense, of course, because of the fact that if you've read the Yang Chen novels, you will have met a character named Sonam before. Obviously not the same person, but there is an abbot Sonam who is one of the abbots that we meet in the Yang Chen novels. Now, of course, that's a character from the past, but I would almost go as far as to be like, it seems like the implication is that this character is from even further back, like potentially we're going into more ancient Avatar territory, but we have to wait and see. I think the video clarifies that the Avatar is female, and the new temple in the mountains is going to be kind of related to this avatar in some way. So it seems like whatever we're doing here with the staff, some history or backstory with this old avatar, it connects to this lost temple in the mountains in some sort of a way. So that seems to be the core of like what the new plot elements for this movie actually are. So that's actually quite interesting. So yeah, mix of this new temple is a mix of Aztec and Mayan temples with a mix of Hindu temples also kind of added in there. I think the idea more seems to be that the general layout maybe looks like this, but it has details of kind of Hindu temples, which based on Avatar, I'd almost say is like that they maybe seem to be going for the idea that more ancient Avatar was more like this, kind of referencing kind of Sun Warrior time kind of periods, but that it's not like the Fire Nation old history that we know, because this seems to be an air nomad Avatar. That this is what an really old school air temple looked like, that sort of idea. But because if we go back to pre-Four Nations, like again, it's this idea that I think we have it very locked into our heads that the air temples have always been Northern Air Temple, Southern Air Temple, Eastern, Western. Whereas if we go back thousands of years ago, especially into the earlier avatars where we know nothing about, before they founded each of those four temples, they very, very well could have had temples elsewhere, including this one. So that's where my mind goes when I hear about this, as what seems to be this sort of like abandoned temple up in the mountains, kind of almost surrounded by ice and stuff like that, to the point where, like, in the video he talks about how, like, the place feels like it's water tribe and almost gives the impression. So does that mean that our avatar Sonam is a water tribe avatar, but actually his source is leaning quite heavily in the direction of that it is an air nomad avatar, which I think makes sense, because if we're doing a thing where the staff is a major plot point and the villain is a shock surprise airbender, I think we're definitely aiming for this to be a movie where we're, in a way, the reason the title is so kind of not great is because we're actually emphasizing the fact that it's The Legend of Aang, The Last Airbender. And it's actually like you almost read into that title a little bit more, and it's like, okay, Aang, The Last Airbender, the legend of that. And it's like, ooh, what are we kind of playing with here? Like that, here's an incident where he temporarily thought he wasn't the last airbender. Maybe they will do the reveal that he's not. It depends on how they do it, of course. But there's clearly some air nomad history stuff we're diving into here, which makes sense, I think, quite a lot. So that's going to be interesting here. And I'm guessing the idea, once again, is that the temple here in the mountains is the lost realm of the old title. This is the hidden kingdom. Now, in what way has it been hidden? Is this meant to be kind of an ancient Sun Warrior type thing where they have been active just in secret? How have they kept it a secret? There's a lot of those elements that we don't really know. Coming to the end of the information from the video, apparently some of this information is going to come out publicly at New York Comic Con in just under 2 weeks. Now, I'm not sure from the video there if Appa Comics is saying that this is an absolute certainty, that like he knows that the plan, like part of why he has this information is that it's planned for some of it to be revealed there, or if it's just speculation that it's a good spot to reveal stuff. Now, just go over stuff like one of the images looks like what feels like a pretty clear cut, like, oh, first movie poster. This would actually work as really nicely as a first movie poster for this thing. But who knows? One detail he knows is that apparently the movie is 60 to 70% done. Which, again, makes sense given that we still have just over a year until it actually releases. And, you know, the idea is that, yeah, they should be wrapping this up probably in the first half of next year-ish. Then we'll just be into final touches, final editing passes before they're ready to maybe show it more directly at some of the big events next year, that sort of thing. So that's all the information. Then it's just really speculation. So the idea is, of course, you know, what is the significance of the staff, and then how do we explain the villain as an airbender? They're the two kind of shock, surprise kind of things coming out of this. Is one, when it comes to the staff, my guess is that it depends on how connected the staff is to the temple. Like, if the staff is what they find at the temple, then okay, maybe them removing the staff activates something at the temple. But if the staff is something they find elsewhere, and it's the first maybe relic of the lost realm, effectively, that maybe would be the thing that leads them to the temple itself. And then placing the statue, the staff maybe in front of a statue of said avatar, activates something at the temple, and maybe like brings it back to life or something like that. And it's kind of unclear about like what are we doing here in terms of like, is this very early movie and somehow this staff reactivates the lost realm and this is what brings the villain back, or is the villain already in play? This is I think the very interesting point in terms of like, is the villain like, I think at some point in the video it's described that the villain looks to be in his 30s, give or take. So that means he's like, what, 10, 15 years older than Team Avatar. He's still from this era, if he is from this era. Or are we trying to get across the idea that potentially there might be some sort of a thing where maybe the staff opens a portal potentially to the spirit world, and maybe we have a Hundun type situation where it's a character who's been trapped in the spirit world for a long time, making their reappearance in the physical world. That could be one way to do it, and that explains how, like, okay, he's an airbender, but he's an airbender from eons past type thing, where Aang is still the last airbender of his era. And especially if the character is potentially thousands of years old, you have the whole situation of like, his physical body would have died in the spirit world, but because of Hundun, you have a slight sense that you can kind of hold on to the power of an element if you have it, because Hundun was still able to do some earthbending related stuff, even though like he had effectively, you know, become a spirit. And I'm wondering, is that kind of potentially what we're playing with? Because of course the spirit world does allow you to basically have a character, effectively a human character, become immortal over time. And, you know, if they kind of, you know, we do need to explore the idea of like the transformation into a spirit, like what exactly does that mean? Because the few examples that we have of like Iroh and the Painted Lady, they still both seem very human-esque. The Painted Lady seems maybe more on the pathway to becoming like full spirit, where like the human aspects are almost gone, whereas Iroh is still very much a human. They might be able to explore that in some way where, like, you know, you can live longer in the spirit world while still maintaining your physical form in some way, because again, there are immortality techniques for physical beings in the Avatar world, which explains why Kyoshi lives as long as she does, the implications about the character Lao Ge in the Kyoshi novels, about him being potentially thousands of years old. So there is a way for a character to just be physical and alive in the spirit world for a long time by just doing the immortality technique in the spirit world. But, you know, that's one way to kind of do it. The other potential idea that I could have here, and I think I say it here, is I don't know if I like this idea or not, but again, where was it that it was said? But yeah, whatever the details are surrounding the villain, there's the potential to expand the lore of Avatar. So that seems to be, it suggests something about the past, or there's some new kind of technical mechanic or something like that, some new aspect of the lore that is introduced surrounding this villain. And maybe it is something like, maybe the staff somehow gives the wielder airbending while they're holding it, even if they are not an airbender themselves. Because again, there's a lot of details surrounding like what exactly the quote-unquote power of an element exactly is. This is a thing that can be given to you by a line turtle or by harmonic convergence. So kind of bursts of energy can suddenly empower you to become a bender. What if that energy is contained somehow within this staff of this ancient avatar or something like that, and by holding it you sort of channel the power of an element in an object in some sort of a way. Again, there were ways to do this. They could introduce the concept that like you can store energy in gems or something like that. There's a lot of options depending on how crazy they actually want to go with the concept of like a staff that actually has power to it, because that's what it seems to be suggested as, though I don't think the video ever directly says what the deal is with the staff in terms of what power it actually holds. My guess right now is that either this is the explanation for how the guy somehow comes across as an airbender more directly, so if you somehow take the staff from him, he doesn't have those abilities any longer. Or like he has them for like a small amount of time after dropping the staff, but it fades away in time because he's not actually become an airbender. The other point would be that the staff somehow is spiritual in nature and is able to facilitate the opening of a spirit portal somewhere. I think one of the details, there's a giant arch on the top, apparently. It's almost like an opening into the other side of the mountain or something like that. And it's like maybe the staff turns that kind of archway into an actual portal into the spirit world somehow. Again, this is this idea where I think a lot of people view this stuff as like, they view these ideas and concepts and immediately go for, how does this break the lore of Avatar that we know, rather than talking about how maybe they're using this to expand the lore of Avatar and highlight stuff that we don't know about, like power more directly within objects is something we haven't really explored too much in Avatar, but is theoretically possible. That sort of idea. This is, as someone who is really into the lore, this often frustrates me about Avatar fans when some stuff comes up like this, is that people are very, very quick to jump to it's a continuity error, it's a problem, rather than acknowledging that, hey, this is out of context. We are missing so much information surrounding what exactly is happening here. Clearly, I'm guessing if Appa Comics read out the description, it would probably give us some context of what's happening here, but the video is more to present a little bit of hype about this movie we don't know much about, rather than to spoil the entire thing. As in, I think the reveal that the villain is an airbender feels very similar to kind of the way the leaks and even the early marketing for Seven Havens is highlighting what happened to the world in the past. What did Korra do? They want you to think about the idea of like, wow, did Korra actually make some giant mistake in the past or not? And they want you to be thinking about the idea of like, kind of almost like, surely not. That should be one of the first things that comes into your head. In the same way as the villain is an airbender, that's what you should be thinking about, is this sort of idea that, yeah, okay, shock horror, we're going to get some hype surrounding the idea of like Aang encountering a villain who looks like an airbender. You know, they want to play with the shock of this as a reveal midway through the movie, but likely will explain the character to be a fake at some point over the course of the movie, kind of like how they did the Amon situation, where at a certain point in the story, your speculation is like, is Amon a spirit somehow? You know, is he actually a human chosen by spirits and given spiritual powers like to combat the Avatar? But no, he was just a waterbender using his technique to do something specific to mimic the Avatar. And they seem to be maybe playing into that a little bit with what's happening here. And for Aang, the concept of him facing another airbender as a villain is a really interesting idea. That I don't immediately jump to the lore is broken here because we don't have enough context to say that right now. And I just think there's actually some really interesting ideas, because I don't want this movie to be basic Avatar by the numbers. I want it to actually expand the universe. I want it to be a story that, like, there's a reason this movie needs to be told. That it's not just the nostalgia movie that people want with the characters just being cool and awesome. Sure, we'll get some of that. But that it is a plot that is actually interesting and challenging and something that they felt had to be told, added to the universe. That's the main point I'd make kind of as we approach the end here. So yeah, the ways that I have, to explain him is that maybe he's trapped in the spirit world, now free, so he's an airbender from a time past. This would still make Aang, the only kind of Aang era, air nomad type thing. And then, of course, there's this maybe idea that, the staff somehow gives the wheel of airbending or something like that. And then, yeah, I just don't think they're going to kind of break this, like not make this not true anymore. Aang is not the last airbender. I think the whole point is just, we're going to think that, and it's not going to happen. So, they're my thoughts on this. I really don't think there's too much controversy here. Like, I admittedly, like, I maybe haven't seen that much of a reaction to it, but I've seen bits and pieces over the place. I don't think there's anything to freak out from this. This sounds interesting and intriguing, given that, again, it is a leak. It is a rumor. This is not confirmed information. So everything factors in here of, like, because it's a rumor, because it's a leak, you shouldn't be, like, jumping to immediately it's locked in information. 2, because it's kind of scattered information, you should also not be jumping to conclusions about it as well. So I think this is interesting because this movie has been very difficult to speculate about what exactly they're going to do, because all we really had to go on was the idea of like lost realm in some way. But now just these couple of extra details, if they're true, present the idea that like we're going to actually maybe dive into some history of the air nomads. We might actually approach ancient Avatar stuff, which is what everyone I think has always wanted them to do. That's fascinating. That would suggest that at some point in the movie, potentially, Aang meditates, speaks to avatars, and goes back to maybe Avatar Sonam to get context for what's happening here, to explain some stuff. That would be a hugely exciting moment. Like in the movie, in the cinema, you see that happen, you go through the avatars we know, and then boom, we go to this avatar, I don't know, way back, and we get that kind of important information. That sounds really, really interesting to me. Similarly, the idea for how do you make a good villain? Well, yeah, an air nomad villain going up against Aang, a character who has airbending in some way, but there's some sort of a twist to it in terms of how this has come about. Is it actually true? That's a nice mystery element to have for the movie as well. So I'm pretty positive on this if this is kind of the way they go, because this seems intriguing to me. And better than a lot of theoretical ideas I probably could have come up with. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on these kind of Appa Comics rumors about the movie. What do you make of them? All the details. What do you think the staff is about? What do you think the situation is with the villain being a airbender, potentially? And did any of the other information from the video, is it of interest to you? Anything you want to add? Tell me in the comments below. Otherwise, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.